Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Harp. I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to trickle in as we always do. I'm so excited to be with you guys tonight because we are actually back in Scotland. We're home, we got home yesterday. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about the tour whilst people trickle into our live. So when you guys have joined, please let us know you're here. Let us know that you can hear me okay. And then once we've heard from a few of you, we will certainly get started with today's guest. But as many of you know, William and I have been on tour for the past 2 months in New Zealand and Australia. Whoa, it's been quite a whirlwind, hasn't it, Willie?
Yeah, it's been pretty full on.
It has been quite full on, but we've had the best time. Really, really fantastic time meeting lots of new people, lots of people in the How to Harp membership. Harping with people, we have had workshops and concerts, but let me talk about the highlight. For me, do you want to talk about your highlight first?
No, you go down.
Okay, my highlight was during a little bit of time off in the South Island of New Zealand. We saw albatross, but we didn't just see albatross. We saw albatross feeding their chicks. Oh, the little chicks were so cute. We saw albatross feeding their chicks, and we also saw them landing and taking off, which they're not very elegant at doing, so that was awesome. I liked that. But then when they get in the air, they're super, super elegant, and they were dipping their wings in the sea, and it was absolutely amazing. It was amazing. Oh, Linda's here. Hi, Linda. I'm so glad you're here and you can hear us. Hello. So, we're glad to be home. That was my highlight. Was the albatross. So William, what was your highlight?
Probably the platypus. That was pretty cool too.
We love wildlife. We love wildlife. So we saw a platypus. We also like seeing wildlife in the wild. So that was really important to us. So the amazing Kate took us to like a big pond in the middle of nowhere, really, right?
Yeah.
A lake. Let's not call it a pond. It was
It was a loch.
It wasn't a loch because we weren't in Scotland. It was a lake. And she was like, we always see platypus in this lake, but her husband gave us a set of binoculars. So I was like, how much platypus are we going to see here? It came right to the edge of the lake. It was so amazing. You could see its beak and everything. They're quite weird looking animals. It definitely looks like someone's just taken a bunch of animals and glued them together. But I loved it. We love the animals. So clearly you guys can all hear us. It's great that you guys are signing in and letting us know where you're coming from. Catherine from France, Rosie's here, Jen's here. It's so great to have you all. So now we know that you're here and you can hear us. Let me tell you that today we are going to be chatting to the amazing Samantha Ballard. Now, she is a harpist from Winnipeg. And many of you might already know Samantha's work because she is very popular on YouTube. She has a lot of subscribers and she shares some really exciting arrangements, a lot of video game music, which we'll be hearing a little bit about later on. But she also has wonderful live streams, which are really, really exciting. So some of you might already be familiar with her work, but today we're going to hear all about how she got into the harp and what she enjoys about her work, why she does it all. And Samantha will also be joining us this month in the How to Harp membership, giving us a concert this weekend and a workshop next weekend, which we are so excited about. But we want to hear from Samantha herself and not from me. So please, everyone, can you welcome the amazing Samantha Ballard? And here she is. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And also, Samantha moved the time for me very graciously because when I booked the Beyond the Harp interview, I then realised about, 3 weeks ago, Samantha, I was like, I'm actually going to be in the air flying home from Australia. So thank you.
A little hard to do a live stream from an airplane, so.
It's tricky. Although BA do say that they have Wi-Fi, but touch and go. Oh, it's great to have you here, Samantha. And I'd really, really love, because I've looked at your YouTube channels, obviously, and I've looked at your Patreon, but there's lots of your music there and there's lots of your wonderful teaching videos there, but there's not actually a whole lot about your background, how you got into harping, who you learnt from. So this is a bit of a mystery to me and maybe a mystery to some of our listeners. So can you tell us, take us right back to the start. How did it all start?
Yeah, okay. So I started playing the harp when I was 15. So it was my first year of high school. And before that, I had spent about 10 years playing piano. I played flute and saxophone in the school band. And I was kind of trying to figure out like what sort of career I wanted after I was done with high school. And I had an older sister who had gone into music. So I was like, okay, music is like a viable career choice. But with piano, I was like, there's so many pianists. I don't think I'm good enough to be a professional pianist. And I didn't want to be a band teacher. I was like, I don't think that's the right fit for me. And so I was like, you know what instrument would be a great instrument to build a career on is the harp, which is kind of hilarious looking back because I'd never seen one in person. I had never touched one. But I was like, yeah, I can play solo. I can play in ensembles. Like, this is a great idea. And so shout out to my parents who totally believed in me because they found someone locally. This is like quite rare actually because there's not that many harpists in Winnipeg, but they found someone who was selling a pedal harp and they bought me this used pedal harp and that was my first instrument and I took lessons for 3 years and then I got into a university program and then kind of the rest I guess is history as they say. So
wow, that's amazing. So you actually chose the harp and you chose a career in the harp before you'd even played?
Yeah, it's like I think I was very lucky looking back. Like, I think I'm not sure that my first teacher thought I was gonna make it, which is fair to be honest. Like, the first year I was not very good, despite having a lot of musical experience. But they didn't tell me that. They told my mom, who also did not tell me until much later. And I was like, okay, I think there's a lot to be said for just like believing you can do something and just going for it. It's really funny to me how well it worked out because I don't know, like I'm not like super into, fate and destiny and like whatever, but like it kind of feels like I was meant for the harp. Like I just feel like I connected with it in a way that I never really connected with piano in the same way. So, yeah, so I'm grateful.
That makes perfect sense. I think a lot of people, I always say I'm not a woo kind of person, but I think even people who say that about themselves do. I don't know. Sometimes I think there is an instrument that you just click with. I'm the same. I learned piano, and I turned to harp when I was 15, and it was like the piano. It's not that it was always a struggle, but it was just never. It was never this. Whereas the harp was.
I think for me, the harp, like, it's such a physical instrument and like it's so like kinesthetic and in a way that like the piano, because it's all flat and it's like all the keys are the same and like you can't grip it in the same way that you can with the harp strings. Like, I don't know. It's just like it sinks in deeper, if that makes any sense.
And when was it that you graduated from your college or your university program?
That was 2015. So about 10 years, almost 10 years ago.
Okay. So I was about to say when you were, started your kind of professional studies at Harp, maybe you hadn't envisaged that the career path that you would take would be to be a content creator for the Harp. But maybe you actually had, because you started creating content before you finished graduation. So was that always the plan, or how did it come about that there was so much content creation in your professional practice?
So I did not envision content creation being like the career path for a very long time. When I was still in high school, I thought, oh, I can play at weddings, I can do the background music thing. Like maybe I'll go play on a cruise ship. Ooh, like I could play in an orchestra. I quickly learned when I got to school that orchestra is like not really my cup of tea. But yeah, it was when I was in my first year of university. I had like moved to a different city where I didn't know anybody. And I spent a lot of time in my dorm room and I was looking up videos of other people playing Zelda music on the harp because I was like a big fan of Zelda. And, so I found like the Harp twins, and there was like a few other people making videos at the time. And I thought, I could do that. Like, yeah. And so I went home over the summer and I wrote an arrangement and I like filmed it on like a tiny little 7 megapixel point and shoot camera, no microphone or whatever. And then the first video that I posted, it got like, I don't know, like 1,400 views after a week. And I was like, oh, wow, I'll keep doing
Wow.
this. So it was like a hobby that I couldn't quit it because I thought it was so fun. But I was like mostly focused on my studies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that did like take up a lot of my attention.
Mm.
Um, but I, after I graduated, it really wasn't until about 2018 that I sort of realized that it could be a career path,
Mm-hmm.
because I started getting involved with live streaming, and I started to kind of look around and I could see other content creators who actually were making a living off of making music online. And so I like around the same time I was also there's a competition in Canada called the OSM competition. The Montreal Symphony does a national competition every year, and they like invite different categories of instruments each time. And so there's a harp category that year, and I decided to do it just because I think I was trying to figure out, do I want to be a classical musician? Like, do I want to just do gigging and stuff? Do I want to do, like, what am I about? And
Mm-hmm.
I did this competition, and I had a really bad time. I really did not enjoy all the preparation for it, and it really made me realize, like, I don't really love classical music enough for
Mm.
me to be a performer of it. And it's like I like it and I respect it, but the amount of time and effort you must give in order to play that repertoire is just so much. And I realized, like, in order to thrive doing that, like, you've got to love it. You've got to be
Mm.
in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And during that whole period, there was a game that came out that summer that I was playing, and it had like just the most amazing soundtrack. And all I could think of was like, I want to play that music.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play that music. And so it was after that competition ended, I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play that music. Let's give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of how I ended up here.
Nice. That's really
Yeah.
cool. And so, since you have that background of formal education and on the harp and of studying the classics, um, was there ever a part of you? I'm kind of speaking because of a little bit of my own experience here, but was there ever a part of you that when you were kind of trying to make that transition to the music that you actually loved, that you actually wanted to play, was there a part of you that was kind of like, I'm not a real harpist if I play this music. I'm only a real harpist if I play the classics, like, and the stuff that I was learning from university? Or was that never an issue for you? Did you have that stumbling block at all?
I think before that point, I think like after I graduated, I was kind of just like in a funk for a while because I moved home, and then I had to kind of like network and like kind of establish some roots, and like that can be slow
Mm.
when you're trying to be a freelance musician. Um and yeah, I think there was just like a couple of years where I was like, what am I doing? Like, and it wasn't even necessarily because of the video game music stuff. It was like, I think at the time, I didn't even really consider the like game music and the content creation and whatever. I didn't really view that as like something that could be like a part of my career. It was really just like
Mm.
a passion project more than
Mm.
anything. But yeah, for a couple of years, really, it was like, I mean, I worked other jobs and I gigged. So I did a lot of background music. I did a lot of weddings. I didn't do that much classical playing. I did a little bit, but not that much of, like ensemble work or like putting on solo concerts or whatever. I did put on like Christmas concerts for a few years, but I just found that like putting on live concerts is so much work. it's so hard to get people to come to them. And so, yeah, there was, I think, a period sort of 2015 to like 2018-ish where I was like, am I a real harpist? I think just because I wasn't really doing classical music
Mm,
at that time. And I was like, is this the real deal? Like, should I be doing something else? Like, I kind of just wanted to be doing everything,
mm-hmm,
but obviously you can't. So, yeah, I think once I went to that competition, like that was truly like a very pivotal moment
mm-hmm,
for me. Um, because the other thing that happened was I was so full of like imposter syndrome
mm,
that like I still get emotional talking about this sometimes. But I was like so afraid to make a mistake, and I was so afraid that if I made a mistake on this competition stage, that would mean that I'm a bad harpist, that I'm not a real harpist or whatever. And that attitude actually affected my playing to the point where like the main feedback I received from the judges was like, your playing sounds very safe and it
mm,
sounds really quite introverted. And it wasn't, you know, I claimed to value, emotional connection and like, um like really reaching the audience and telling a story with the music and all that kind of thing. Internally I was like, oh, I don't value playing perfectly, but actually what I was doing is I was prioritizing
mm,
playing perfectly at the expense of being more expressive in my playing. And so um that was really important, I think, for me, so that then I was like, okay, I've really learned that classical music is not my calling.
mm-hmm,
Um, and so I'm called to do something else, and I'm gonna really give it my all. And I think at that point I felt very like liberated. And I
mm,
at that time too, I was also able to stop working other jobs. I was full time, making a living as a musician, and I think that also felt very liberating. So yeah, at that time I was like, okay, this is me.
mm-hmm.
It felt good. So yeah.
Mm, that's great. That's awesome. And I feel like a lot of what you're saying about imposter syndrome and finding your calling as well, a lot of our listeners will be able to really relate to.
Yeah, it's so common.
Yeah, it really is. But it's
Yeah.
amazing to see you. I think that's the thing is we do have sometimes we have this impression that we should be playing this repertoire, we should be pushing ourselves in that direction, should.
Hmm.
But just seeing how much more you're shining from doing what you just love and
Yeah.
and it's such a better way of doing it. Like that's
Yeah.
and most of the people who are here in our audience are people who are playing the harp for fun as a hobby and not trying to make a career out of it. I mean, yeah, sure, a
Yeah.
lot of us want to share with people, share our music with people, but not necessarily make it a profession. And it's so important to remember that we're doing it to have fun.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, totally. So in your professional portfolio now, obviously I mentioned that you've got your YouTube channel, which of course, well, you've got two YouTube channels, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the first one is,
I actually have three, but that's
oh,
I
well,
have
you've got
too
two
many.
that you shared with me.
Yes, I have two
So,
main ones. I have
okay,
a third one where I post things that don't belong on either
got
of
you.
them.
So you've got Samantha Ballard, and then you've also
Yeah.
got Samantha Ballard Harp Studio. So we'll talk about the
Yeah.
differences in a little moment. But other than the content creation, what is your professional career? Do you still do weddings? Do you do live performances? Do you do in-person teaching? Like, how is your career formed now?
Yeah. So that's almost hard for me to answer, but I think so. The number one thing that sort of forms my living, I guess, is teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an online studio where I have a couple of other teachers that work with me, and we do one-on-one stuff and we do group lesson stuff, and so that's very fun. And then I obviously have my YouTube channels. So I'm working on an album right now. So I do recordings. I have stuff on Spotify and that sort of thing. I like to arrange sheet music and have some sheet music published on like musicnotes.com. I do a little bit of live performance. So every now and then locally I'll do a live concert, not so much, because I actually have chronic pain, which it's pretty manageable so long as I don't play too much. So doing live performance is quite demanding on my body, so I try to limit it. But I do also live stream on my YouTube channel, my Samantha Ballard YouTube channel, every Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So I think that's 5 p.m. UK time. Um, so I do that. I still like play weddings and things like that locally as well. So it's a lot of what's the expression? Irons in a lot of fires, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, a nice mixed bag, but that keeps it quite fresh, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think over the next couple of years, I want to consolidate a little bit to focus
Hmm.
more so on kind of my online activities. So, like the different YouTube channels that I have and that. But yeah, I think especially the educational YouTube channel, the Samantha Ballard Harp Studio channel, that I just started last summer, and I've been really, really enjoying that. So it's a challenge keeping everything like running at once.
Mm.
So I've slowed down a little bit as I've been trying to finish the album that I'm working on, but I'm still uploading there,
Yeah,
and intend to do even more once the album is finally done.
amazing. Amazing. Right, well, I think we better listen to some music. And I've got some questions about our specific first track that I'm about to share with everybody. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind everyone we will leave time for questions from you guys live. So please do write them in the chat as they come. William is behind the scenes with us. He will store those questions up for later. So don't try and hold them in your head. Get them down and we'll come back to your questions in the comments later on. So let's move over to have a listen to our first clip from Samantha. Lovely. Can you tell us about that piece?
Sure. So that is the title theme from The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, which is a game that just released last fall. So I'm a huge fan of the Zelda games, the Zelda music. That's like really my entry point into my love of video game music, kind of as a whole. So um, when I saw there was a new game coming out, I thought, okay, maybe there's a song from this title that I can approach. And then a friend of mine, actually, Patty Rudisil, did a really fantastic string quartet arrangement of it, and that made me really go like, oh wow, this song is really great. So and it works really nicely on harp. It's interesting because most of what I do is arrangement, and so some songs translate just like really easily and really beautifully, and then others are like much more of a challenge. But that one I think worked pretty nicely without having to push it too hard.
Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah.
So I've got a question that I'd love to ask you kind of specifically about the Zelda music, but it relates to music in general. And it's a question that we get asked a lot about in the membership, and that's copyright. Because I know that, particularly with the Zelda music, there's been some changes. I believe there's been some changes in the copyrights about what you guys can actually do with that music. So it'd be really interesting to hear from you about, how are people allowed to share the music? How are they allowed to sell the music? And have you had any issues specifically relating to your Zelda creations?
That's a really good question. So copyright, broadly speaking, means the right to distribute um, someone's intellectual property. So if someone has composed a piece of music, and if someone could hum it, and you would say, "Oh, this is this song by X person," or like, "Oh, this is this song from that media property," like then that is like a song that the composition of which belongs to someone else. Sometimes people think like, "Oh, well, I played it on my harp, so now it's my song." In terms of copyright, it is your performance, but it is not your composition. So what that means is when you want to share your recording or your performance of that copyrighted composition, there are specific rules to follow. And um, what I'm going to say follows like US copyright rules, because typically the rest of the world kind of follows what the US has set for rules. So country specifics, I'm not an expert on, but there are different rules depending on how you are sharing someone else's composition. So, firstly, if you're sharing it in some kind of way that you're making money on it, some piece of it probably is going to need to be your own. So maybe your own arrangement, your own performance, whatever. Like if you're just playing the original recording, that's not really the same thing. But the first type of sharing that's probably the easiest to understand is if you release a cover of a piece of music on a site like Spotify or iTunes, that sort of thing, or if you make a CD with your cover, your arrangement, your performance of that piece. In those cases, there's what's called mechanical licenses. Current copyright rules in the US are that if someone has commercially released a piece of music, then you can release your cover of it by paying a royalty, essentially paying a licensing fee per download or per CD or per stream. And there's kind of different specifics, I guess, depending on the manner in which you're sharing it. When it comes to sheet music, the copyright holder is not required to give you a license. So when it comes to those cover songs on Spotify or iTunes or CDs or whatever, the copyright holder does not have to grant permission. You are entitled to make those covers and sell them as long as you're paying those mechanical license fees. When it comes to sheet music, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to give you permission. You're not entitled to permission. So what often happens for small creators, because the people who manage the copyrights for sheet music are usually such huge companies that if you're a small creator and you're maybe going to sell 24 copies, they really don't want to spend the time of day to even respond to your email. Probably no one has even read your email. So what's become more common is for some of these larger companies to have blanket agreements with websites like musicnotes.com, Sheet Music Plus, where you can go to the website, say, here's my arrangement of this copyrighted song, and they will handle the licensing for you because they're a big enough company to actually have an agreement with the publishing companies. So now, the thing that has recently come up with Nintendo properties, so that includes Zelda, includes some other properties as well, is that they decided they did not want any third-party arrangements to be licensed. So that meant they went to those websites like Music Notes and Sheet Music Plus and said, you're not allowed to sell any arrangements of Nintendo properties that that are not like specifically approved by us, and they're not going to approve arrangements by someone like me. They would be like if Nintendo decided to hire someone specifically and then publish their own arrangements, that would be the road that they would take because they like to have a lot of control over their IPs. So since last summer, I haven't been able to sell or distribute sheet music for Zelda music or other Nintendo properties because they do not want to give permission. Then sometimes people ask, well, okay, but can you give it away for free? Technically, giving something away for free is still distributing it, which is what copyright is all about. So distributing something for free of a copyrighted work still does technically violate copyright law. You could be sued for that if you do it. The thing about copyright is that like it's kind of nothing happens until you get sued, and then it's really bad. So it's kind of like sometimes you'll find people who are sharing things and maybe it's not super kosher, but it's like that's a risk that they are willing to take. Personally, I'm not willing to take the risk on giving away Zelda sheet music for free either. So I haven't been able to do that. Now, the last piece of this puzzle, so we talked about cover songs and we talked about sheet music, and the last piece is YouTube. So YouTube is kind of a funny gray area. Like if you make a cover of something and you post your performance on YouTube, if you go by the letter of the law, technically you would need what's called a sync license. So you pay a license to have music that is synced or plays alongside a video. But most people on YouTube do not do that. And the YouTube Content ID system is actually quite savvy now. It can hear the music that you play. And if there's a match in its system, then it can either say the copyright holder is going to monetize your video and get money from your video. Sometimes, a lot of the time actually, it'll identify that it's a cover song and it'll split ad revenue between you and the copyright holder, which I think is good and fair. Or sometimes your video could be taken down. It doesn't happen that much, but it is possible, unfortunately. And it's really, it's upsetting for creators when that happens, because if that happens 3 times within a certain time frame, they just take down your whole channel. So, yeah. So that was a lot of info, but I feel like copyright is often really misunderstood. So hopefully that was shed some light on the topic.
That was great. That was so useful. Thank you so much. And I'm interested to know, in light of these changes that Nintendo has brought in, has that put you off creating music and sharing it on your YouTube channel? Or do you still think I love Zelda music, I'm going to keep doing the Zelda music? Like, has it changed what you want to create?
I think a little. Like I think before that I did kind of have some plans forming in the back of my mind to, maybe do some like Zelda or other Nintendo properties, like make like some easy sheet music, like beginner sheet music. Because like I get students coming to my studio all the time who are beginners and they're like, I really want to play this song from Zelda, I really want to play this song from Final Fantasy, or like whatever. So I think like that those ideas are still certainly in the back of my head for non-Nintendo properties. I'd sure like to do that for like Final Fantasy or Skyrim or different like anime and stuff like that too. But for Zelda, like, so it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to spend time making arrangements that are like easy or intermediate that like are intended for students if I can't distribute them. But as far as like what songs I'll like record going forward, I think at the moment I'm kind of just planning to explore music that just I find inspiring. So that if that is a Zelda title, then great. I'll still do it for my own enjoyment, but yeah, I think in terms of other projects, yeah, I'll probably be steering away from that music.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Really interesting. That was great to hear a really thorough but quick rundown of copyright, because it can get very, very complicated.
Yeah.
So it was really, really useful. Thank you so much. And for those of you who enjoyed listening to that little Zelda clip that we shared, you can hear the full thing over on Samantha's YouTube channel, along with lots of other amazing music, lots of Zelda music as well, of course. And this is the Samantha Ballard channel, but as we've already mentioned, you have, 3 YouTube channels, but let's focus on the Samantha Ballard and the Samantha Ballard Harp Studio, shall we?
Yeah.
So the next clip that we've got is taken from the Samantha Ballard Harp Studio YouTube channel. So maybe we can have a listen to that clip, and then you can tell us a bit about the difference between these 2 channels and why you have 2 channels.
first thing we want to do is make sure that your fingers actually know what shapes they need to be in throughout the arpeggio. So we're going to start by practicing the arpeggio as solid chords instead of broken chords. I'm going to use a G major arpeggio for my example today. So that's going to be G, B, and D, repeating until I get to the highest G on my harp, and then I'm going to head back down. But it doesn't really matter how many octaves you're playing here. The practice strategies are still the same. So to actually practice this as solid chords, instead of playing all these notes separately, I'm going to play each of the notes in each hand all at once. So I'm going to go all the notes in my left hand, the right hand, the left hand, etc. Okay. Do you want me to tell you about the channel?
Yes.
Okay. So, so last summer I started this YouTube channel. It's called Samantha Ballard Harp Studio, and it's just where I share educational content about playing the harp. I have some videos about, I share about like technique and posture and mindset and arranging a little bit as well. Because I've been teaching for quite a while, basically since I graduated, and I think I'm pretty good at it. Like I learned pretty late, and I think that really meant for me that all those like aha moments of like, oh, I couldn't do it, but now something made this make sense. I still remember all of those very clearly, and I think that I'm pretty good at understanding like a student's thought process of like why they might be doing something one way, which helps me then kind of like reframe the thing they're trying to do. And just like, I think I'm good at exploring different ways of explaining things. And so I thought, you know what, let's make some videos that are going to help some people. Actually, it started as like just like some videos to share with like my email newsletter. And just kind of sharing those, and then to kind of give people a taste of like what my teaching is like in case they want to join like my teaching studio. And then it kind of became like, hey, this is really fun actually, like let's keep doing this. So yeah, that's why I started a separate channel, because my first channel, just the Samantha Ballard channel, it's just music videos. And so not everybody who watches those plays the harp. Not everybody who watches those are going to want to watch videos about playing the harp and learning to play the harp. So I figured it would make sense to have a dedicated space where people who are, learning the harp and want to find more resources for that can kind of find it in one place rather than kind of having a mishmash of everything together. And for anybody who's wondering what the third channel is, I did start a third channel for arrangements that I have of like pop music, because I do enjoy arranging pop music quite a bit as well. And, sometimes people ask me to learn something for a wedding or whatnot. And I wanted to share those, but it sort of felt like it maybe didn't make sense for those to live in the same place as all the video game music. So so that one's not super active, but it is also out there for anyone that was wondering.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. So fantastic to see you sharing your hints and tips. And that clip that we just shared was just one of the hints that Samantha gives about improving your arpeggio playing. So definitely check that video out for the other two, I think. Tips.
2 or 3. I don't remember.
It's a great video. Are you wanting to interrupt me there, William? Oh no, I thought William was looking at me and I was like, oh, we've got an important question, but no, they're all good for the end. Okay, cool. Keep your questions coming in, guys. I can see that they are coming in, so that's great. So the 2 channels that we've got going on here, back to the Samantha Ballard channel. On this one, you often live stream. How's that? How do you feel about that? We're live streaming right now, but we're together. So I feel like we're in it together. But you live stream by yourself. You work all the technology. You're playing the harp. You take requests. You've got a tip jar. How does that feel?
You know what? It feels great. Honestly, my live stream every week is like the highlight of my week, like almost every week. So because I've been doing it for so long that there's kind of like a regular crowd that usually there's a good handful of people, like names in the chat that I recognize, and it kind of feels like we're there together. And the other thing is that when I live stream, like it's very casual. It's like it's not like if you went to see a concert in a theater and the lights go down and now it's me on the spotlight and everything must be perfect. Like no, like I make a lot of mistakes and I laugh about them, and like sometimes I'll learn new stuff on the spot, but it's just like the way I feel about it is like we're just there to hang out and have fun. And yeah, I think that's how I feel about the live streams, how I feel about like live performance in general, is like whatever your attitude is as the performer, like everyone else is probably going to feel that way. So if I show up and I'm like, I'm just here to hang out and have a good time, then like the people watching are probably also going to feel that. So um, yeah, I feel like I've got a good system for the tech, so the tech doesn't bother me. And yeah, I just it's just a good time.
Hmm, nice, that's great. That's such a lovely attitude to have. And we're going to share a clip now, which is from one of your live streams. So we can have a little look at your setup and a little listen to the kind of thing you do. So let's go over to that clip now. Lovely. So this was taken from a live stream which you had titled Songs to Make Soup To, which you did explain in the live stream, to be fair. But where do these weird and wonderful names for your live streams come from?
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, I almost always title my harp streams Harp Music to Blank 2. And this sort of started like when I first started streaming on YouTube. I would typically make like pretty generic titles, or I'd try to get keywords in there, you know, harp music to relax and study to, or whatever. And I just found that like people were not really clicking on them, or like it didn't seem like reusing those titles like really was resonating with people. And so I feel like there's kind of a trope of, especially like lo-fi music to study to, or lo-fi music to, I don't know, whatever. It's kind of this sort of a trope. And so I started doing that. And then, so now every week when I boot up the live stream, I'm like, okay, what can I, what can I put in the blank spot? And I sometimes like to come up with something a bit silly because it gets people talking um, in the chat. And I feel like a silly title gets people's attention a little bit and gets them into the stream. So
I like that.
yeah.
That's great. And in the harp music to make soup to, you even had your lighting. You told us that you made it red because your
Yeah,
soup was
that's right.
tomato-based soup. I like that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah,
That's
a lot of
fun.
the time too, because I'll take requests on stream. So sometimes people will kind of request songs based on the title of the stream that day as well. So it's a lot of fun.
That's lovely. That's really, really nice. Now, I did look at your YouTube channel. To be fair, well, obviously because I've just talked about it, but the last time I looked at your subscribers was maybe 3 weeks ago, but I'm pretty sure it was nearly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, nearly 60,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah? How does it feel? That kind of blows my mind, the thought that there's 60,000, well, if it was me, if there was 60,000 people tuning in to listen to me, that would kind of blow my mind. Like, how does that make you feel that there's 60,000 people out there that are tuning in to listen to you play harp music to make soup to?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you a secret, which is that there's not 60,000 people that are listening. There's, over the course of 13 years, 60,000 people have clicked the button to subscribe. Actually, probably a lot more than that because plenty of people have unsubscribed as well. But subscribers on YouTube doesn't really mean what it used to mean. And so even though there's like the big 60,000 number there, it like if I upload a video or if I live stream, it doesn't mean all of them are coming And I don't know. I guess I just don't think about it that much anymore. Because I think that that number doesn't really have that much of an impact on anything. I think it's just there. It looks great. It looks great for me. It makes me look really cool, so that's nice. But yeah, I don't know. I think more so like I tend to focus on, yeah, sort of like the regulars on the channel, people who are like consistently leaving comments or coming to live streams or in the Discord server, or even, people who are lurking who aren't leaving comments or whatever, but I know they're there, like people who are consistently checking out the music and kind of keeping tabs on what I'm up to, and like um that sort of like depth of connection is like, I find that to be a lot more important than just trying to get the biggest number possible.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's lovely. That makes perfect sense. So I'm gonna, before we go to the questions that we've got from those who are tuning in with us tonight, I'd like to ask you something that's a little bit more personal, but I think that will be really beneficial to some of our listeners to hear. And that's that you mentioned earlier in this interview that you don't do as much live performance due to chronic pain issues. And I know that a lot of people who subscribe to How to Harp do suffer from issues which make it difficult to play the harp.
Yeah.
Even not just for long periods of time, even for short periods of time. And so I think it would be really helpful if you would feel comfortable to talk a little bit about that, about how you've overcome that, and just how you still harp through those difficulties.
Yeah, and I mean, first thing I want to say is just like it really can feel very devastating when you really love something but you can't do it, and that just can feel very heartbreaking at times. But so for me, my struggles kind of stem from, I don't really have a diagnosis for this because I think oftentimes when it comes to chronic pain, Western medicine is not always very good at pinpointing what actually is the problem. I think in more acute scenarios, if you have a pinched nerve or you've broken something or sprained something, like that's quite easily treatable. But for me, it's just that I get quite sore after, like, if I play more than my body can handle. So I think maybe something with my connective tissue, or I don't know exactly what. But for me, the biggest, well, there's a number of things that have really helped me. Um, One is just getting to control how much I play. Like when I was in school, it was really hard because it was like, well, you have to learn this much music by this time. You have to be part of these ensembles. You have to have your part learned by rehearsal or whatever. And so I spent so much time and energy on pain management back then. Like
Mm.
I kind of didn't even realize it until I was doing the competition in 2018 that I mentioned. And then I was practicing a lot more at that time. And it sort of came back to me and I was like, wow, this is like so all consuming, like managing this pain. So for me, truly, like the biggest thing is like when I am the boss, I get to decide what projects am I taking on based on, how much do I need to practice? Or if it's just my own projects, then like I can take a day off or I can practice a bit less. So
Mm.
for me personally, on average, I practice about an hour a day, 5 times a week, and then I take
Mm-hmm.
2 days off.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to do a little bit more, then I'll maybe try to do like 45 minutes at two separate times, or I don't know, what, something like that. But if I do like 2 hours consistently for a long period of time, I'll get quite sore. Um, so yeah, so just managing how much I play is like really huge for me. But then something else that really helped me a lot, because after I did that competition, I was like, I messed myself up something fierce. Like I was in so much pain for months. And the thing that
Mm.
got me out of it was learning Alexander technique, and learning about just like the way I was using my body, not only at the harp, but away from the harp, like my posture, just as I went about my day, was really affecting my body. So, like, trying to, I mean, I'm not perfect all the time by any stretch of the imagination, but just trying to have like good posture, especially when I'm at my desk or, when I'm sitting on the couch or whatever, like, Those things really add up and affect your body a lot. And then I was able to also kind of take the stuff I learned in Alexander technique lessons and apply that to my technique. And I feel like since 2019, when I started Alexander lessons, like my technique feels really different. Like I feel like I almost reinvented a lot of how I was playing. And sometimes I think to like the times before that, and I'm like, what was I doing? Because my
Yeah.
technique was so tense. And I really think that was actually a huge part of my problem when I was in school. Um, and, you know, I think my teacher did her best to try and help me relax it, but like it was unbelievably tense. So yeah, and then besides that, learning about you know, stretching and
Mm.
warming up properly and rest is really important. When to use ice, when to use heat, like some of these kind of pain management strategies can also be helpful. But I think like the biggest thing that really made a difference for me was learning basically about like how am I using my body, and like what are things that I'm doing that are causing harm, and how can I reduce that, and like what are things I can do that do something good for my body.
Mm.
And yeah, I think it's been a lot of learning.
Mm.
But I just couldn't accept that that I wouldn't be able to play harp. I was
Mhm.
like, no, everyone else can do it, like I will also find a way. And so maybe it looks a little different, but I think that is one of the reasons why I was so drawn to content creation as well, is because it's like it's on my terms,
Mm.
and I can do a recording, and then someone can listen to that recording as many times as they want, and it doesn't put any strain on my body after the fact, you know.
Mhm.
So but yeah, that's I guess in a nutshell kind of been my journey with it.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing. That was really helpful. I want to ask you one more thing before we go to our questions from everyone,
Sure.
and that is that you also mentioned that you are preparing an album. So I'd love you to
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what music's on that. Is it covers? Is it what is it, and when can we expect to get our hands on it?
Yeah. So I'm currently working on an album of covers from it's music from a game called Octopath Traveler 2. I actually have an album of covers from the first game, Octopath Traveler. It's called Guiding Light, an Octopath Traveler harp collection. That's like you can find it on my website or on YouTube or on Spotify or whatever. And then the second game came out in 2023, and then I really dragged my feet for a long time. But then I decided, okay, well, actually this soundtrack is really great too. So so I'm doing an album of covers from that game. The composer of that soundtrack, his name is Yasunori Nishiki, and I just think that his music, like he really knows how to craft a melody, really knows how to do really interesting things with harmony. And then when you listen to the originals too of the soundtrack, like his orchestration and choice of instruments is like so masterful.
Mm.
And I just think when you listen to his music, like each piece conveys like a story, a theme, a feeling in like a very like sophisticated way that's like still extremely accessible. Like you can listen, you can be like, wow, this is really beautiful. But I feel like the more you listen, the more there is to really appreciate about it.
Mm.
And I feel like with his music, it's so me. It like just calls out to my heart in a way that I can't resist. I don't know. And it sounds really great on harp as well. So that's in the works. I'm hoping to get it out by September. October if I can't manage it, I guess. But yeah, so you can kind of keep an eye out for that in the fall.
Amazing. Can't wait. You'll need to let us know so we can share a link everywhere
For sure.
in the membership with everyone. So, have we got some questions from our listeners for Samantha?
Yeah, you got 7.
Oh, 7 questions. Let's get them up then. What have we got? Okay, what was that game that made you realise that's the kind of music you want to play? So what was the first game music that made you realise you wanted to play that on the harp?
I think Mary is talking about earlier when I was talking about the competition that I did. There was a game that came out that summer that I was playing, and I was just like, ugh, I don't want to be learning classical music. I want to play this. And that was Octopath Traveler, the first game.
Ah,
And then the following summer, I started working on that album, my first album. So yeah, that was
oh,
the one
that's
that kind of
lovely.
really
And it's like
set
a
it off for
circle
me.
because now you're working on the
Yeah,
next album.
exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Kate. Do brides request game music at all? Yes, all the time. And if so, what's the
Yes.
most popular game tunes? So,
Yes, they do. I'm trying to think. I feel like it's not as common. I feel like the Final Fantasy Prelude, Zelda's Lullaby are pretty popular. I feel like those are the two that kind of come to mind primarily. I don't
mm.
know about you, Heather, but
Yeah, definitely the Zelda for sure. Um, I mean, sometimes you get like really wacky things, don't you? That you're like, for a
a lot of the
wedding.
time, yeah, if people are requesting something, a lot of the time it's like something that's like quite niche, that's
Yeah,
like important to them, but like maybe you wouldn't have expected, but which is
yeah,
great, which is great. That's
that's
fun.
nice. Yeah, I think it's nice. I really like the worst wedding request from brides is when they say, "Oh, just play whatever," and I'm like, "There's so that's literally anything. How can
That's
you
so
could just
funny.
play what?"
I don't think I've
That
ever,
freaks me out.
well, maybe once or twice. Then I just pick what I like and what
Me
I think is
too.
easy.
Me too. And I'm like,
So, I mean,
oh,
if
I don't
someone really
know.
doesn't care, then like that's fine. They'll like whatever I play. But I just ask people to pick songs for the ceremony, and then the rest of the time I'm like, okay, I can fill the rest of the time.
Yeah. Nice. Good question, Kate. Thanks for that. Okay, another Samantha here. Is there a big loss if I switch from learning on a pedal harp to a small harp in terms of technique?
I don't think you would lose anything. I think it would probably feel different. The spacing between the strings is going to be different. The tension is going to be different. The way you hold your harp is going to feel different, obviously, because it's going to be a much different size. But um, I don't think you're going to lose anything. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Great. Great answers. I love these. Pew. Get through them. She's like, I've got 7. I need to get through these. Has anyone requested a song for a wedding that you just couldn't or didn't want to play?
Oh, for sure. There's been a few songs that are like pop songs that are just like very percussion heavy that I've been like, this just isn't gonna sound very good. Like, that's sort of the main thing that comes to mind. Or sometimes actually people request like classical music that's just like, this would take me a year to learn, and I don't feel like doing that for you for no extra charge. So actually, no, I just wouldn't do it because I'd be like, this will take up way too much of my time. So I feel like those are kind of the two scenarios where I might just be like, sorry, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Absolutely true. I think the interesting thing about the harp is that it's, I always call it a dying instrument, which makes it sound very sad. But the thing that I think is really hardest to replicate is when people choose orchestra pieces or something that are very string heavy, that are very like
Yeah.
washes of sound, and you're like, the harp is like a plinky plonky instrument, and once you plug the string, all that's left to do is for the string to die. And so,
Yeah, that's fair. I think it depends on the piece. Like, I definitely think there are pieces where that's the case. I think sometimes you can get a little more creative with like the arrangement sometimes. Like, um, yeah, I've definitely had brides request things, but say like, but I don't want it to sound really like plucky. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I'll see what I can do.
yeah, that's amazing. Don't make it plinky.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just can't get too attached to the original, I think sometimes in those
Yeah.
in those scenarios.
Have you ever gotten any copyright strikes on your YouTube channels?
I have not. I don't think. I feel like I'd remember it if I did. I have plenty of times where a video will get claimed. So, like I was mentioning earlier, the YouTube content ID system will flag a video and say there's a song in here that belongs to somebody else. But I've never had a strike, which is where they wag their finger at you and you get in trouble.
Hmm,
So,
that's good. Let's hope that is the case forever.
yeah, knock on wood. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what microphone are you using to record your harp? It always sounds so great, and I have a lot of trouble figuring out microphones. Harps are so hard to mic up. What do you
Yes, this
use,
is a huge
Samantha?
question. So I right now use this microphone that I'm speaking on right now. It's an Aston Spirit. I think there's a cheaper version of this mic, which would be perfectly fine. This is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. And then I also record with a small diaphragm condenser microphone. Right now I'm using a Neumann KM84, which is a very expensive microphone. You do not need to record on something like that. But
That's what we use as well. Willie's going, it's two.
Okay, it's a good mic. It's a really good mic, yeah. But I used to record with two small diaphragm mics instead of the one large, one small. But I found I had a really hard time getting like good definition on some of the like low to mid frequencies. I had a really hard time getting it to not sound really muddy, which I mean, I think I got really good at editing my recordings in the mix. But yeah, I think that like the large diaphragm with the small diaphragm, especially because the Neumann is it's a little brighter than I was using Rode M3s, which are like a little more mellow. But yeah, I would say if you're struggling with recording, though, you don't need a really expensive microphone. You don't really need a really expensive interface. It's more about like how you use your equipment more so than the microphones themselves. So as long as you've got, I think as long as you've got microphones that plug into an interface and aren't like a USB mic that goes directly into your computer, those are probably going to sound pretty good. And if you have two microphones and record in stereo, instead of recording with one microphone in mono, that alone will make a world of difference. Stereo is so important for harp recording, in my opinion. It sounds so different. And then the other thing to really consider is the room that you're recording in. So a really good test is if you stand in the spot where you're going to be recording your harp and clap really loudly, can you hear the clap echo back to your ears? And if you can, your room is there's too much reverberation going on. So if you can bring in blankets and cushions and rugs and mattresses and just like soft things, like basically if something is hard, it will reflect sound. If something is soft, it will absorb sound. So the more soft and absorbing things you can bring into the room, the more it's going to dampen that echo of when you're clapping. And I find that helps quite a lot. Another thing is like where you're positioning yourself and where you're positioning your mics. So I would even just recommend like take a day and put your harp in different spots in your room, and at each spot position your mics at different closeness or distance from the harp in different spots, heights, whatever. Take a picture of everyone, take notes on everyone, like how you set it up, and then listen back and see what you think sounds the best. That truly is like the best advice I can give, and it's something that I didn't do for years. Like it's like such a shame to me. Like I feel like my recordings could have sounded so much better so much sooner if I had just taken the time to really experiment and like really just like spend the time. Like it's annoying. Setting up mics is annoying. I get it. But once you actually can hear what it sounds like, then you will know what's the best option for your space.
Nice. That's good advice. Do you have anything to add, Willie?
No, that's perfect. That's a perfect
resident sound engineer over here.
Yeah. We basically say exactly the same thing in the Christmas collaboration.
We do.
Thing. Find a good room, don't record in a dining room, try loads of test it out.
Yeah.
Like a mic balanced on a load of books and a nice sound in the room is totally fine sometimes, you know? You don't need lots of equipment and lots of money.
Yeah.
Which is just as well, because who has it? Nice. Okay. How does it feel that you're costing people thousands of dollars who are going to buy a harp? Oh. When I started reading that, I was like, should we have pulled this one up?
How does it feel to have inspired people to play the harp and now they're out thousands of dollars because they purchased an instrument?
Yeah.
I feel good. That's got to be the best money you've ever spent, you know?
100%. I totally agree with that. Kate's back. Do you think you might compose music for games? Oh, do you do much composing, Samantha?
I've done a little bit of composing. I would like to do more composing in the future, just for my own artistic expression. I don't really see myself composing for games anytime soon, just because composing for a game is like a pretty Herculean feat. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of work, and there's some specifics to it that I don't know. Like I feel like I can probably compose like a piece of music, but there are going to be like things to do with structure or the way you record it or like the way it's looped, like technological things that I don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always happy to record for other composers who are making games. So yeah, that's
So
sort of I
shout
feel
out
like.
to any composers out there who are looking for a harpist.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's your girl.
yeah.
Piano is also all in the attack, even more so I'd say. Harp at least resonates in a weird way for. Oh, he's talking about my comment about the harp being a dying instrument. Yeah, that's true,
Yes.
but you've got the sustain pedal on the piano, which you don't
Well, and
have on the
also
harp.
you can sustain notes. You know, you can
Yeah, you can
hold a
hold
note.
the note. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, very true. And that's all the questions. Yay! You did brilliant.
Well, thank you very much. I've had a lot of fun just chatting today. So
Oh, it's quite nice
Thanks
to
for
just take
having
the
me.
pressure off, isn't it? And just have a
Yeah.
nice chat.
Yeah.
It's lovely. So before we finish up completely, you are our special guest in April in the How to Harp membership. We're so excited to be having you. Can we expect some video game music in your concert this weekend?
Oh yeah, that's 100% video game music this weekend. So
Woo!
for
We've never
anyone
had
who,
that.
yeah, for anyone who maybe has never heard video game music or like does not know what to expect, I think by the time the concert is over, you're going to be going, wow, I didn't know that video games had such beautiful music. You're going to enjoy yourself. It's all very pretty. And I've picked some of my favorite tunes, so
Amazing.
it's going to be a good time.
Oh, can't wait. And can you give us a little sneak peek about what we can expect from your workshop next weekend?
Yeah, so for the workshop, I'm going to be talking basically as much of like my sort of pain management, injury prevention knowledge that I've accumulated, as much as I can pack into 1 hour. We're going to talk about things you can do for your body away from the harp, things you can do at the harp, relating to technique, relating to posture, relating to warm-ups and stretching, and yeah, just I'm gonna try to impart as much of my knowledge. So whether you're a person that has chronic pain, or maybe you don't, but you just want to make sure that you stay healthy as you continue to play the harp, I think that's going to be useful for everybody.
Amazing. This is absolutely wonderful. We can't wait. So I just want to say, Samantha, thank you so much for joining me tonight. That was such a fun interview with you, and so fascinating to hear. I did lots of stuff about your career that I had no idea about. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Amazing. And we look forward to seeing you this weekend. Great. Well, guys, if you have enjoyed today's chat with Samantha, we do have a Beyond the Harp interview every month in this YouTube channel, the Heather Downey Harpist YouTube channel. So please look us up, join us, subscribe, and you can keep up to date with all the different harpists that we are chatting to. And of course, Samantha is just one of a number of amazing harpists and music specialists and Alexander technique specialists and practice specialists and many, many more things which go into playing the harp, who join us every month in the How to Harp membership. And if you're interested in checking that out, then head over to howtoharp.com. You can read all about the membership, and we do have a first month half price for new members to come and try us out. Thank you all so much for listening, and I really hope you join us very soon for another Beyond the Harp. But of course, to all of you out there, happy harping.